Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
I'm the end. I'm the end. I'm the end. Are you ready to ride the Are you ready to ride the frequency? To ride the frequency?
Welcome to Riding the Frequency. You guys, it's been a minute. Leanne has been busy. We launched Lee TV and a new show there called The Zero Files. The Truth is Out There with Randy Weitenheimer. We optioned a book, hired a director, and are looking to shoot a feature film. We're developing a TV series called Alienation. I've got another new song on the back burner. There's a lot going on. Lots of editing work from Detroit Centrics. But for the first time in a minute, I did an interview with Penny Kelly. Lovely, lovely lady. I'm not even going to say anything about Penny, except that she was kind enough to give me an hour of her time. So let's jump into it. Welcome, Penny Kelly.
All right. Very good.
Hi.
Hi there.
How you doing?
I'm doing well. I am so grateful that some of the heat has passed, that I could be out there dancing on the porch. Oh my.
Yeah, you passed it to us because we get the weather the day after you do here in New York. It goes
It's
in New
coming.
York. So I'm glad it's a little cooler there today because you just
Cool.
told me what's happening here tomorrow.
Okay.
Weather
Yeah.
when we have friends in Detroit and Novi.
Yeah. Yeah. It was 98, I think, on Friday. We were just like, oh my. So I hope everybody out there is keeping their cool.
Keeping hydrated. I have one room air conditioned. I live with 4 parrots and they're particularly sensitive. So I've got the primary bedroom cooled down and
Okay.
yeah, and I've got a cold big giant bathtub. I go swimming if I feel like it.
Oh, well. Yeah. Yeah. It was so hot here the other day. I had to get in the tub to cool down. It's like,
Yeah, another good one is really cold water running right here.
I know. Oh my
Right?
God.
Or if
Yeah.
you put it here,
Yeah.
so that was fun. Or putting your feet under cold water because then the blood gets cold and circulates colder.
Yeah. And
Well,
that blood is moving. It's moving fast. So
it
really,
is with a very powerful pump.
yeah. Well, I don't think it's a pump. I think it's
It's a brain.
differential between, we'll say positive and negative charges.
Yeah.
And blood keeps flowing 100 and what is it? 160 miles per second.
Yeah.
Like that's fast.
I think pump was a very pedestrian word to describe that.
Yeah, that's okay. People do still think of it as a pump.
Well, I mean, technically, if your blood goes at a pulse and a beat, like there's.
Yep.
So,
That's okay. Yeah, but it's like the word quantum. I've said a few things to people. No, the quantum, that concept is really a dead end in science, but most people have taken the word and they use it as kind of a catch-all word that says, I'm interested in the future, everything quantum. And that's the word that they use to indicate that they're interested in the future, future technology, future science, future whatever. But in actual science, quantum is like, okay, that's gone as far as it can go. And it hit the wall a long time ago. And we now have plasma physics. And then beyond that, we're going to go to consciousness finally.
You
So
know, these people want to try to explain the orbs and all that stuff. It's plasma consciousness.
it
I
is.
I have orbs in my apartment.
Yeah,
It's like confetti flying all night long. It's not dust and it ain't bugs.
that's right.
There's
That's
a difference. And this awful device
oh
registers them
yeah.
on
Okay.
video. I've laid down on my bed and pointed my phone at the ceiling just to see.
Yeah.
I ask them to slow down. They do.
Yeah,
They're curious. It's an interactive experience for me at least.
it is. I think people don't interact because a lot of people can't see and they don't care. That's another aspect of it. But
Another aspect is fear of the unknown, which I continue to insist is my friend.
the unknown is our friend.
Of
Oh
course
my
it
God.
is.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my. Yeah, we have when I was working with Dr. Levengood in the lab, we did some work researching orbs and had quite a few conversations about orbs uh, and we did come to the conclusion that the orb is something that gets created by language. And when people talk, that is the conversion of source energy to what I call the first stage of plasma, which is these little orbs.
Mhm.
And they do have a consciousness, they do have a frequency, they do have an intent kind of embedded in them, but the real intent doesn't come until they start joining together. So I have some photos of orbs that would knock your socks off. You can't even see the people in the room because there's so many orbs. And what does that tell you? There's a lot of this, blah, 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 a lot of conversation. And some of that conversation is really potent, and some of it is it's just lost energy.
Mm.
So when people don't want to look at some of that science and they get all freaked out or afraid, it's like, no, 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 you're creating that. That's your creation. What do you want to create deliberately and on purpose? So,
So many things. And that's the other thing. Make your
yeah,
own movie. Stop watching theirs because it's scary, it's ugly, and it's not even well produced. I mean, it's so well produced that you've been you've
yeah,
been duped, but it's not well produced enough for some people to say, hey, stop looking at that, stop entangling with that, because
yeah.
when you do that, you're just propagating their agenda. So go,
Right.
like you said, you know, sometimes the best thing is to not be afraid if you lose your job, because then you get to go tend to yourself, your space, the time to look inside, the time to reflect,
Yeah.
the time to open your mind, the time to receive new information, the time to lavanda. Something. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but people don't do that often. They don't take that, they don't have permission to focus on themselves. And so they spend all their time worrying and fussing and crying and struggling. And it's,
It,
it's
it's
sad.
Yes, it's a little, it's difficult to watch, but
Yeah.
then when I start saying things like that, I try to catch myself and say, okay, well then stop watching it. Like you told them, go make your own movie and set a different example
Yeah,
and
that's right.
enjoy yourself doing it.
Yeah.
Like I refuse to do dishes unless I think it's fun. And then when the water runs, all kinds of stuff happens. Like,
Uh-huh. I know. I actually love to clean house, do dishes, do laundry, because I don't get to do a whole lot of that. And I'm working a lot. And so that's downtime for me. It's like, oh wow. And when I was young, I started working early. I think my first business was babysitting when I was 11. And my next business was dog sitting. And my next business was house cleaning. And then it was hair, giving women who were, I think I was 14 and they were 60, 70 years old, permanence and hair color. This is way back in the day. And so I've done a whole lot of stuff. And one of the things was housekeeping, house cleaning. And I just found that to be so relaxing and so rewarding. You get done, it's beautiful.
you know what? My neighbor was out of town and she asked if I would mind cleaning the hair salon that she cleans once a week. And I thought to myself, you know what? How cool would it be to go clean somebody else's mess where I have no emotional attachment to anything? And it's just
Yeah,
fun, like tra la la. So I did, you
good
know.
for you.
Well, yeah. I mean, I I am picky. I try not to do things in exchange for money that feel like a slog or like a straight jacket or just
Yeah,
mind numbing, you
I
know.
know. One time, just to see what it's like, maybe, but every day, day after day, the whole life. Oh,
Yes. And then you have to get, well, you don't have to, but if you can get to a place, I think giving ourselves permission. It's like what you said before, it's like people don't get permission, but from whom do they need permission really?
they
Themselves.
have to give it to themselves. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. I was just talking with my son this morning. We went to breakfast because we have a business together. So we talk about that. But I said to him at one point, we were talking about, I can't remember what brought it up, but I said, I think that the corporate system is just going to go away. It's going to go down. And he said, well, how can that? What do you mean? And I said, who wants to show up every day, day after day, for 30 or 40 years, doing the same thing every single day just for a paycheck, waiting till you can retire so that you can do what you really want to do? And what happens? You retire and you die. And so
Well, and
what's
what's worse is you're making money for some other guys benefiting from your mind-numbing,
right?
soul-crushing daily nonsense routine for somebody
Yeah.
else's self-interest. And you can tell yourself the story. It's like, yes, but it helps me too. It helps me pay bills. Well,
Is that what life is about?
exactly.
I
And then
don't think it is. It's
what?
not about
Bills,
life.
man.
Yeah. And he said, well, we need jobs. And I said, do we, or do we just need work? Everybody has to do work without getting paid. It's what keeps everything going. It's what housewives were complaining about when I was younger. And the women's lib movement was just getting rolling in the late 60s and early 70s. And, and we were bra burning radicals. Okay. This is what it came down to. But the big complaint was we're working, we're cleaning, we're cooking, we're taking care of children, we're doing all this stuff. We don't have any income. You couldn't get a loan. You couldn't own anything on your own.
It's
Your
indentured
husband,
slavery.
yeah, it was.
In a form.
And I said, I remember the day and I remember the feeling. I remember everything about that day that I walked into a bank for the first time. And I was an engineer at that point. And I said, I would like to take out a small loan. I think I needed 7,000 for something.
Hmm.
Um, and they said, okay, yeah, fill out this paperwork. They gave me the money. I was like, oh my God, because that was not the way it was for my mother and all my aunts and the older women that I worked with. They were so frustrated. And I was like, holy cow, I can get a loan all by myself. I don't have to get a husband to sign the papers for me. And that was a turning point. That was in probably the late 70s. And it has just, we've moved through the whole corporate thing now, and I think corporations are going to begin shrinking because I see the population shrinking, number one, and we have this huge, I don't know what I would call it, this huge group of people. I think millennials and Gen Zs, and they don't want to throw their life into a corporate lifestyle. So when I was saying to my son, I think we're not going to have jobs. Corporations are probably going to shrink to the point that most people will be working for themselves. And he said, I don't know how that's going to work. How will the world work? And I said, it'll work just like it did before the Industrial Revolution. And he was like, okay, let's load the dishwasher. So, the conversation kind of came to an end there. It was something that was so far-fetched for him to get his mind around that it was like, okay, I need to think about that. Let's load the dishes. So, we did, but I was aware that if he's thinking like that, he's probably not the only one. There's probably a lot of other people that are not seeing that this system and this lifestyle that we have is not the only option. So,
well, it's not sustainable if the species wants to have some kind of mental health or physical health, for that matter.
right. That's right. Do we really need all the trinkets
No.
that we end
No.
up spending
No.
money on? No, we don't.
No.
No, I've noticed as each one of my kids has grown up, they have been less and less interested in stuff. I don't need that. What do I want that for? I just have to take care of it. I just have to, maintain it. Why do I need that?
It's like death by 1,000 cuts of stuff.
Yeah, that's right. 1,000 cuts of stuff. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So we're on the threshold where I guess we're crossing the threshold now of a big change in how we spend our time. And I think for a lot of people, the whole AI and robotic thing is going to come home to roost. I don't know that I don't think we're going in the right direction with that in terms of who's in charge of that. But if I think that the people who are in charge of that are going to sort of hit this is as far as we can go without adoption by people. And that's going to require some changes. People are not going to be interested.
Well, sure. And they understand the difference between adoption and adaption. Those are two very big different things.
That's right.
You can adapt to a situation and not buy into the nonsense.
Yep.
But if you adopt it, they own you.
That's right. And they have owned us for a very long time. And, after Kundalini happened, what changes is your whole perception of the world. And that is something that I just, there's no going back, number one. But when you start to see how it all works, you end up saying, why? Why are we doing this way when so many people are unhappy, are not cared for, they aren't fed, they don't have a secure life, they don't have, there's so many things that they don't have. They don't have a decent place to live. They don't have, you have to have food, clothing, shelter, transportation, and communication. And that's for any civilization. And the huge majority, look how many people are homeless. Um, they, we just, we aren't doing a good job of
There's a
taking care of.
percentage of the world population who's never seen a phone, doesn't have running water or electricity.
I know.
Right? Like, and people can't wrap their minds around, like some metropolitan 16-year-old, you tell that to them and they just look at you blankly. What?
Cannot imagine. Yeah,
And you know, so this whole thing about how you grew up with, you know, babysitting, then it's the hodgepodge you described in your last monthly check-in. You
that's true. That's
know,
true.
so yeah.
And that was, later I had a little job in a factory where we made hors d'oeuvres. I look at the label on the jar and think, what are horse to oovers? And it was much later when I was talking to somebody about horse to oovers, and they're like,
You mean
what are you? They didn't even know, they couldn't make the connection. And finally I said, it's spelled HORS, and then there's an apostrophe maybe, and I think there's a D in there somewhere, maybe another apostrophe, and then there's OEU. And they burst out laughing. Oh my God, you're talking about hors d'oeuvres. And I'm like, oh, is that it? It was one of those moments that's so embarrassing. But
no, it's actually if you can get past the the
yeah,
embarrassing part,
I know.
it's very sweet. I
Well, we were
well,
country kids. We didn't know. We had this chance to work in this little factory after school. And we ran these big canners. And
so fun and dangerous all at the same time, I'm
yeah,
sure.
yeah, they were. Yeah. So, and then for a while, I had a small business with my dad. He worked for Consumers Power Company, and he brought home old stoves and refrigerators, and they were stoves that were really very nice, but somebody had not taken care of them at all, never cleaned it, never wiped it down. And so I got to be a pro at cleaning anything. I don't care what it was. Charred, you know, grime that was baked on an inch thick. It's like, okay, what'll clean this? And so you figure out all that, and he would then sell it once I had it cleaned up, and we'd split the money. And so it was really for me.
You've had family businesses going ever since you were little. This is not it's a template that you guys have followed that is
Right.
very it's good for so many things, for keeping connected.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I'm the product of two only children, and I'm also an only child, if that tells you anything.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was raised in the city. I spoke French and English fluently by the time I was 3 at a 5-year-old level. My mom was born in 1923 in Brooklyn to a Russian immigrant and a French immigrant who
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
and then my those two didn't get along. So my grandma started having an affair with a Mr.
Oh,
What's his name? Oh yeah, but my grandfather was okay with it because we'll just raise the girl and we'll be friends. And then he told my mom, please, for Christ's sake, don't get married. Sorry. Um, uh, live with the guy first, you know.
uh-huh.
And so my mom's this
Right.
weirdo walking around very forward, wondering what's wrong with all these women.
I'll tell you what,
So that's what raised me, man. Like I didn't have to burn a bra. I mean, she's
yeah, that's way ahead of her time. And
right.
I think there was an underbelly in the culture of women who were like that. But the prim and proper, the girls who were following all the rules, they were the ones who got all the attention. Nobody ever talked about, and there was no outlet for
For
those.
that kind of person, right? Which is why she was very cerebral. She
Yeah.
graduated high school at 15 and a half.
Oh my.
You get hundreds on the Regents without studying.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then I mean, what a life. She
I
she
know.
right? She got a scholarship to go to acting school right out of high school.
Oh, really?
Got married to a French freedom fighter. That didn't end well. After World War II and some summer stock and some Broadway stuff, she went to Europe with a bunch of other expats. Fell in love with a spy. I've got a book that he wrote, which has a chapter dedicated to all the stuff she used to tell me growing up. So I know she's not embellishing. It's in the book.
Yeah, right.
Was a jazz composer, then came back here and did Broadway. And then I didn't know her till 1965. And by that time, she was into dubbing and foreign film translation. My dad
Oh,
died when I was
wow.
5. Yeah, he was also, his whole story is completely, he came from a
Different.
vaudeville family. Like
Wow.
I'm such a hodgepodge. There's your hodgepodge,
Yeah,
dude.
you're right. Yeah. And
I'm an
that is,
anomaly.
I think that's, well, it is an anomaly, even to this day, to some extent. But when I hear young people talk about getting a job and going into a corporation, I'm, there's a little thing in my tummy that goes, oh,
Mm.
um, that's not going to work out. That isn't the kind of culture we're going to have as we move forward into the future. And even though how do I say this? We have this period of time where a lot of younger people, I'm way older, but a lot of younger people are at this place where they go back home, they live with parents or with grandparents or somebody that they know. They don't really get married, they don't really have a job, they may have a child or two, but nobody is saying to them, how about this? Look at that. They need some kind of direction that's outside the corporate system that leads to skill building, independence, self-sufficiency, and a sense of security. And that's nobody's talking about that. Instead, everybody laughs and makes fun of them. Oh, they don't want to work. I said, yes, they do, but they don't want to be in that system because they know that is debt slavery.
Well,
Uh,
this could be absolute suicide here on YouTube, but I'll go ahead and say it. I haven't paid rent in about a year. My skills are acting, writing music, producing music. I finally started getting a little work editing music videos for somebody who's got a band that they're trying to, okay. My dad
good
was
for,
an editor, so I've got him over my shoulder. I put my skills to what, I mean, I can't just sit here, but I don't want to go work at Trader Joe's because, come on, it's not going to go well for anybody.
for,
Um,
for $15 an hour or 18, whatever they pay.
I'm an
How
amazing
to live.
baker. I just don't know how to start a business because I've convinced myself that I don't understand business and it crushes my creativity to have to think like that. So maybe a partner, but then now I'm looking for some savior in some way. That doesn't work. So, I'm actually one of those kids that you described living at my mom's house and like I talked to her like from the woo.
Yeah, very good. Very good.
Right. So I've got lots of friends. They're all
I
not in
think
bodies.
you
Most,
do know how to start a business. It starts just like you're talking about, one little goofy step at a time. Well, I
and
think
that's
I'll do
it.
it because
Right.
I like it. And you learn
Right. And
as
I'm
you
having fun doing what I'm doing, having conversations with beautiful people like you. My friend said, could you do the audiobook for my book? I said, sure. So
oh,
I
there you
put
go.
an audiobook in there. It's up on Audible. It's called Spider Seeds. Then I turned around and I optioned the book from him because a director friend of mine who's always wanted to work with me and likewise said, you know, let's make a movie. I said, okay. So
Very good.
I hired him, I optioned the book, and I now have right of first refusal of own
Okay.
and starring. So that's, so I am. It's a little late at
Yeah.
60 years old to start this, but hey, man, I
You
still have
don't
plenty
even
of energy.
begin. You don't get ripe until you're at least 50, 55.
Thank you.
By 60, you begin to say, Okay. If
Ah,
you haven't thrown your life away, I mean, some people are meant to go to work in a corporation and they manage to stay healthy, but most people do not. They go into that corporate setting and they completely neglect their body and their health goes, meow. And then they get 65, they retire, they are a wreck.
right.
And
Like when you're 65 and look 90. My mom was 98 and about to drop dead, and she looked 70.
oh, that's the way.
You know, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I get that. And I think, when I left the farm when I was young, when I left my childhood home and went to the city, went to Detroit, I loved it. I loved it. It was the time of hippies. And of course, I wasn't a hippie, so I missed all that. But I loved watching it. And I wanted to be a writer. And I started writing. You would die if you could read the first thing I wrote. It was awful.
What my
Oh my
mom used to say about her first song, it was awful. And after she died, I found the handwritten piece of music from
God.
1947
Oh my.
that she hand wrote with her best friend's big brother, who she was so in love with. The
Oh,
whole thing. And I found it.
yeah, good for you. I think my first piece that I ever wrote was something for Red Book, which was a women's magazine for all those women who were trapped at home. And I sent this article in, it was 22 pages. I'm like, oh my God, I don't even know how many words. Um, but the title was Going on a Diet is Worse Than Wearing a Hair Shirt.
Oh, oh,
They immediately rejected it. Didn't even,
I would
know.
have published that immediately if I were on charge.
Oh my God. And I found that article later and thought, oh my God, this is awful. But when you come out of a farming community and gardening and self-sufficient lifestyle, and you go to the big city and you want to be a writer and you start writing and everybody just turns their nose up at you, you learn the ropes the long, hard way. And I remember thinking, well, I'm going to write this. I was writing my very first book about Kundalini. I'm going to write this just in case there's somebody else out there that might be going through this. Oh my God, this is unbelievably difficult and blah, blah, blah. And I wrote it. And I forget, I think that was like 1981 or two. And then I rewrote that entire book every year for 10 years until I thought, okay, I've got it. And then nobody was interested in it. They didn't know what Kundalini was. And so I just ended up, I thought, I'm going to publish this myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Make your own movie. I'm
Right.
literally doing that.
Exactly.
And I've
so
got
I published it.
I came up with, people, you can make your own reality. You do it accidentally by buying into a program. Why not do it on purpose by actually thinking for yourselves?
That's right. Oh,
I'm
that
sorry
is
to
such
sound
good
so
advice.
mean.
No, that's nice and blunt. I like that kind of straightforward talk, as we say on the farm.
Yeah, well, I'm kind of like Maxwell. I'll crawl in your bathroom window and crack you on the head with a silver hammer and leave. It's not nice, but
Well,
necessary.
a lot of rejections, a lot of learning, a lot of finally I became a publisher. And so I have a whole bunch of books now that sell regularly and I've had a few people who have said, "Can you help me publish my book?
I was
want
just about to ask if you have anybody that you publish that isn't you at your company.
No, I tell them I don't have time, but they end up coming back. And the best comment was from somebody who was, I think he was a scientist and an engineer. And I said to him, it's not difficult to publish your own book. Just go here, do this, do that, sign up, blah, blah. And he wrote back and he said, I know that you said this wasn't difficult, but this looks like rocket science to me. and I can't figure it out. And I was like, okay. So I gave him a few tips, but told him he was on his own. And I've
But
had,
you're giving him a fishing rod, and if he's got the will to, give himself
yeah,
permission to think differently and go down a different freeway lane and like get some neuro wiring going for himself and like
you
rewire
have to be
his
willing
brain.
to learn a new language. You can't move into any field, doesn't matter what it is, if you don't want to learn the language.
We're back to the unknown needs to be your friend.
Yeah, it
How we
does.
came full circle.
It
Oh,
is your friend.
it
It
is.
absolutely is. Yeah. It's really one of those one of it's one of those areas of life that I think most people are afraid of. But it's if we don't go there, you got some worse things to be afraid of
I
than actually
agree.
going.
I think humanity has literally been lulled and hypnotized into some false sense of security with like having the same thing happen all the time makes it feel safe. But that's fake. That's not. It's
That
not.
is fake. You're right. It's not real, and it doesn't leave you on your toes.
Okay.
It,
I have to bring this up. Like I wasn't going to. I was somebody shared a clip from an old 60 Minutes, which I posted on my Facebook. And it was about how they were giving Hezbollah the pagers. Remember that when they were exploding? Okay.
yeah,
That's not my takeaway. See, this is my weird superpower. I watch a story about pagers and Hezbollah, and I come away, like Randy said, uh, looking at this clip where he says, okay, this is how it works. We make a movie that everybody believes, I'm paraphrasing, and we go out of our way and spend thousands of dollars for the writers, the creators, the actors, the producers, the props, the everything. And as long as we can get everybody to fall in step, false ads about these amazing pagers that you could, they go out of their way
yeah, that's right.
to bait people subliminally, consciously, the way you need the next iPhone because my iPhone 4 still works, okay? Like, well,
Very good.
I don't
Oh,
use it, but it's more like a storage case for old stuff that I
there you
did,
go.
but like a hard drive. But my point being is that what makes everybody think that a Mossad agent, like if I were running the Mossad, I would have waterworked that guy because he just told the whole world the psyop that's been used on humanity through mainstream news and this movie. And last week it was Escape from LA. This week it's president dropping F-bombs, insinuating that nobody knows what they're doing because they've been doing it so long they're goofy.
I know.
He's correct about that.
Yeah,
All of society is goofy. That's the way they like it.
I know. And
You
and
know,
they don't ever get any further than the box that they're in.
and then argue.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the argument does make for some drama, and the media loves that drama.
The media loves the drama, and I always thought it was about the dopamine rush, but then somebody pointed out, no, it's more about the cortisol spike that they want.
Okay.
Cortisol spike is what it's fed off of.
You get both of those, plus the big thing is you get people that are totally distracted. They're not,
Trifecta right there, just like Mossad, CIA, and Vatican. There's your
yeah,
triangle, guys, right
I
there.
know.
I don't care if YouTube doesn't like what I'm saying because
I
I'll
know.
say it somewhere else. I don't care. Like people are like, should we talk about? Yeah, talk about whatever you want, man.
I have to agree. You can't have a country based on censorship. It falls apart. So
Well,
we have to be truthful. A lot of people think of truth. I mean, they hit you with the truth like it's a brick. Doesn't have to be a brick. I think we could learn some grace and expand our language. Every so often somebody will say, would you quit using those big words? And I'm like, no, I'm not using big words. These are common words.
Right.
And they haven't heard those words.
Right, but they're also used to plain words being weaponized, and don't even know that they're being weaponized because it's become
That's right.
so repetitive.
Yeah.
Is it that you repeat over and over? And
What about getting out?
like what are they downloading into your head while you're asleep? That stuff is real. I found a patent for voice to skull because
Yeah.
Age Nost said something on his uh mind mastermind group, whatever,
Wow.
and then he's passing around links. So I went looking and started taking screenshots. Like you can even find how to identify a voice to skull victim because of the way they behave.
I'll
Like
tell
when
you.
they go shoot people in Minnesota.
Yeah. I have some photos, I've actually printed them out because I didn't want somebody erasing them. But they are photos of some of the electronic stuff happening.
Mhm.
And I,
Yeah, man, we're electromagnetic pulses at us, the 5G at us, the information that's being penetrating our fields successfully because they know how to hack your consciousness. They know how to cut through your awareness. They know how to get into your subconscious, and you don't even know it. And I sound like a raving lunatic, but I'm not.
no, you're not. And you don't sound like a raving
Not to
lunatic.
you. I mean,
Well, okay.
right, probably not to John Peterson. I don't sound like, well, I couldn't really stop interrupting Frank Jacob, which was I'm really trying hard not to interrupt you, but it's not working too well.
Okay. Well, I think the overall, the overarching conversation that we need to have is that we, meaning the population of the US, with other people. I remember running into this law that said, no, you can't interact with other heads of state. It's against the law. I'm like, what? What do you mean? I had pen pals when I was growing up in Japan, Australia,
Mhm.
and Ohio, which was not very far from Detroit or from the thumb. I was actually in the thumb. And it just boggled me that ordinary citizens were not allowed to talk to heads of state in other countries. And that it still bothers me. It's like,
Some
what do you mean?
perverted fear that you're going to turn into a communist if you have a Russian pen pal or that whose dad like is like at the embassy and wherever. Like it's weird. But
Yeah.
this is it goes back to Khazarian mafia and then like the two mafias and the Chicago Pope. Like how is that not convenient with Meyer Lansky? Like it's all and people like the
Well,
20 and 30-year-olds don't know about that. They also haven't read lots of novels on which they're basing their playbooks lately.
that is true. Yeah. I don't think a lot of people are reading nowadays. I read a book a day when I was growing up. I started way, way back with the Bobbsey twins, way back in the 1950s. And and then it progressed, and I got into some heavy duty, what do they call it, romance novels.
Hmm.
And then boom, Kundalini happened, and the little men in brown robes came around and said, we want you to read this book called The Third Wave. And I was like, this looks totally boring. But I read it and it wasn't, it was amazing. It was like my mind opened up. And I began to see the people of the planet the way I saw my family. I had come from a huge family. My grandma had 14 children. My dad was one of 10. And everybody grew up and had 6, 8, 10, 12 children of their own. And I I remember thinking as I was growing up that after about age 10, I wanted to sit at the table when my mother and her sisters or aunts or uncle, any of them, were talking and just listen to the conversation because they talked about some serious stuff. Everything. It didn't matter what it was. They talked about everything. And then, all of a sudden, all of that just sort of went away when I got interested in the world as a romance novel. But when I read that book, The Third Wave, it was like, oh, this is like sitting at the table with my family and listening to the talk. And every so often they would say, go away, go do something. And I would say, why? I want to hear, I want to listen. No, we want to talk about something that's too old for you. And I would be like, oh, and they would chase me away. But I would hang around the corner and, yeah. And I grew up in a little tiny house. We had 2 bedrooms and a bathroom, and then one long room in the front of the house that was kitchen, laundry room, dining room, living room.
Well, so it was hard not to hear what they were saying, even if you did go to your room.
Right. And we had no doors on the rooms. So there, when we went to bed, my mother made us go to bed every night at 8:00. And they would be talking. Sometimes the adults would be talking out in the living room. We would hear, would be like, no big deal. It was normal. And, I grew up listening to a lot of analysis of what's wrong with this kid and what's wrong with that guy. Why, there was always some black sheep in the family.
Yeah. No.
Family.
Right. See, and in my small family, I didn't have any choice. I had to hang out at the table listening to all of the adults.
Yeah.
So I got all of it. And I learned how to read subtext in the context.
Yes.
Right. That's one of my early, right? I just like that.
I never chased the kids away if they wanted to hang around and we were talking. But I noticed that almost all of them, right about that same age, 9, 10, 11, they'd hear a little snippet of something and they would say, well, what do you mean by that? And we would be like, oh, you're listening? And yeah, and they were. So it's really, I think that it sets the stage for a very broad range of frequency. What could I say? Of being comfortable and thinking it's normal to have a very broad range of information, a very broad range of attitudes. Frequencies bring information and attitudes. And if you don't have that when you're growing up, then everything is a shock and you're always in stress mode.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense. As sheltered as I was, and you're not allowed to walk home from school by yourself. You live in New York City like that.
Yeah.
I was given so much information. My mom truly believed and knew that having a bilingual child would help me be able to see things.
Absolutely.
Okay. It's about having an open mind and not walking around with blinders on.
Oh my gosh. Yes. Yeah, I studied Spanish and German and French, but I'm not really fluent in any of them. And although when I went to South America, probably 20 years ago, I was shocked I was the only one in the group who understood anything they were saying, and I was able to communicate well enough. And the things that I was picking up intuitively, things that were not being talked about, that was the gamut. I was down there with Carol Rosen, and we had the gamut of experiences, everything from wife beating, which you could hear sometimes going on in the night, just down the mountain, to ETs and UFOs flying around and, accessing your equipment and sending messages. And it was an amazing kind of experience. And I think
Sounds like it was very well-rounded, like you said, the gamut was hit.
Yeah. The food was extraordinary. I met some Amazon shamans that were very quiet They were very quiet. They didn't say much. But I didn't either. Was like, I know a few things. Maybe I don't know as much about the things that you know about, but they were very interested in what I knew. And they seemed to sense that I had some skills. And so there were, I mean, it was just a very interesting trip. So
Sure, it
the
must have been really nice to communicate with people without having to open your mouth and just be in a
yeah,
community that is comfortable sensing one another as opposed to verbally assaulting one another with
right.
sounds.
Yeah. Or demanding that
Or
you answer.
adjectives that could be construed five different ways. When you sense one another, there's no miscommunication.
That's true. Yeah. I mean, that is something that people don't bother to do. And we all have that capacity. We need to use it. If we're going to move into a fourth dimensional or fifth dimensional system, we're going to have a whole different set. I guess I'll call it a set.
Of sensory gifts.
Exactly. And that set of gifts is going to make for a whole different kind of behavior and interaction. And we need something different right now. So it's we're headed toward a new earth, a new world, new earth. But we can't get there if we don't shift the consciousness. And that means expanding the frequencies of your brain. That means being open to a lot and not being so hawkish.
Right. Being a little more courageous about giving yourself permission to at least ponder. Like it
Right.
starts with a pondering. And then it
I know.
continues into an imaginary, hopefully not negative idea. And then once that idea doesn't feel scary, it's like putting a little toe in and then,
Yeah.
and it's okay to keep one foot in here and one foot in there because I think that's actually a more balanced way of being able to discern and navigate both
Yes.
simultaneously because we are in both simultaneously.
We are. And why would you jump out of the frying pan into the fire?
Because the programming makes you do things that make no sense. It's because it's Mr. Spock is the anti-Spock.
Yeah. There you go.
It's not the
Oh,
Antichrist, it's the anti-Spock. Like, be
yeah.
logical, guys. Love you.
That, yeah. I mean, why? There's just so much. We are so multi-talented and so multi-dimensional and so multi-perceptual. And we really need to start using that. And I think, in one of my classes, and I think it's Intuition 7, no, 6, I talk about being multidimensional and what that means. And people are always, OMG. They are stunned that they are creating with every word that comes out of their mouth.
Every thought that they think goes someplace and creates a reality.
Yes,
It's the
it's what
zero,
builds the world.
it's the energy in the air. They grab the idea and the
Yep.
thoughts.
And you don't have just one version of yourself. You have one version of yourself for dealing with your mother, and another version for dealing with your dog, and another version for dealing with your cat or the neighbor down the street.
Listen,
Or
I certainly hope the version of myself that goes out and has a good party time isn't the version of myself that's raising my kids.
yeah,
Right?
right.
We all wear multiple hats. Like the mood you're in is a hat, if you think about it.
It is. It's
Right?
a state, it's
Right?
a frequency state.
Right. And that can change in an instant. That's part of the beauty of this species is being able to hop from frequency to frequency in nanoseconds. Like I can be laughing and then start crying and then start laughing again. I mean,
Yeah.
it's kind of extreme, but it's kind of cool to be able to, you know.
It is. And I think a lot of people get into some sort of mood and then they nurse that instead of nursing their flexibility.
Right. and then they become an angry person, and then they become addicted to the chemicals of anger and don't even know that they're now anger addict, or that there's even they need that next hit and they don't even know why they're angry, like, because that's
Yeah,
not logical to be angry, but my body sure wants that,
that
oof.
is true. And I think we haven't really paid much attention to birthing and child raising and all of that. But when you have a child, that first 72 hours, that sets the chemistry for the rest of that person's life. Now, with a little consciousness, you can shift that and you can shift it a lot and you can become something totally different.
You got to
But
look at yourself to see what that, right? See, there's the, you got to be willing to look at yourself.
right. Yeah, and work on yourself.
It's okay. Really, it is. It's
It
more
is.
satisfying than gossiping, really. For
Oh
the
my God.
brief moment of feeling important because you know something about somebody, like, ooh, what P did P, who cares? Like, that's, I
Oh,
mean,
that guy. Yeah,
it's gross. Like, why give it any attention at all? Just
I
ugh.
know. I don't. I mean, I hear things happening, going around, but it's like I don't have time to read that kind of stuff. I don't care.
Because you're
I
busy
want a
creating
different
your own
home.
movie.
Yeah, that's it. Yes. Yeah. So when are you going to create your next movie?
Well, this will be out probably Saturday. How's that? This
All
is my
right.
next movie, and then I'm still chopping up an episode of the Zero Files that's going to come out on Friday, and little clips from that, and what else?
Now, what are the zero files?
The Zero Files is a little show that Randy Weitenheimer said he
Okay.
always wanted to have a show called The Zero Files. The truth is out there. I said, okay, let's make it happen. What does it look like? I said, yeah, it sounds like something that I could be happy making that movie with you. Let's go. So we did. We put them out once a week, and once that picks up a little traction, we'll do some lives and answer questions
Yeah.
if anybody has any.
All right. Very good.
It's fun.
It is fun. And, if you think about it and think about it deeply, if you're working at something that isn't fun, it becomes drudgery. If money is the only reward, after a while, that's not enough.
Well, how correlated is that to the amount of money our government spends on people who have ADHD or whatever it is that are all going around medicated? There's a direct correlation.
Yeah. When 62% of our children are drugged on Ritalin or Adderall, that says something awful, awful. I watch my grandson behave when he comes to spend time with us. He's not on that Ritalin. He's perfectly normal. He's a 10-year-old boy.
Mhm.
When he goes home, it sounds like he's awful. And I don't think he is. I think you either learn to bring out the best in people or you learn to bring out the worst. And when you haven't done any work on yourself, you're probably going to bring out the worst.
Right.
So,
Well, look, you know what? Everything is a transaction. Everything's an energetic exchange, and it's the old, like, do as I say, not as I do. But like what you do is what drips down the percolator. Like, so
yeah,
how does our government, who, like, with all these guys trying to get away with this, and then there's the they and all that, and then they complain about how society behaves. Like, where do you think we're picking it up? And then daddy changes every 4 to 8 years. Like, we're all like, I have a crazy bad daddy. Where's the babysitter? Uh-oh, I don't know. It's got to change again. Oh, like, oof.
yeah. I think we're
Let's go
coming
to
to a
Sesame
point
Street,
when you look at over the big street. Yes,
right?
over the big picture of history, we had for thousands of years we had kings and queens, and then somewhere along the line, finally, after a couple thousand years, we got to this point where we said, no, we don't want to be under the thumb of a king. We're going to have some other arrangement. And the actual arrangement in the US was one of the most stunning accomplishments. But
They weaponized it.
Well, not only that, it's
And
totally corrupt now. But the thing is, when you look at it, maybe they just replaced the king and the queen with the president and the vice president, and they tried to divvy up the power structure a little bit more. And we're at a point now, I hope that we are moving past the idea of having to have a nation with a president and vice president and a parliament or a Congress or all those things. And we're moving toward becoming personally responsible for what we want and how we're going to work together. And that's a big change. That's a huge step.
It's a huge change. It's an existential change in a way, because it looks so completely different from what we endure today.
Yeah. Endure is right. Yeah. It does look different, and it behaves differently, and it requires different thinking from us and different kinds of cooperation. But I think that, the world that I see coming is very exciting.
It is. It means that everybody's going to get off the sauce and onto their movie.
The sauce. I like that. Okay.
Everybody
I thought you were going to say get off the sofa.
Well, there's that, the popcorn eating public who just watch it all happen.
Yeah.
Right. What can I do? Said 8 billion people. I'm only one person. What?
Right. Go do your life. Go do you. All of that comes together and forms this amazing collaborative multiple person reality. So we don't need to be thinking that we have to step into Trump's shoes or Carney's shoes or
anybody else's shoes. You got your own shoes. And if you don't have shoes, you're walking barefoot and you're earthing. So that's even better news.
That's right. That's right. That's a problem right now. I see people, they never take their shoes off and they never walk on bare ground. And so they build up this huge charge because we are electrical creatures. And that that whole thing is like, whoops, hang on a second. Somebody's calling.
Uh-oh. Do you want to take it?
No, that's okay. I told her to call after 5, and so it's after 5, but I'll call her
after 5.
Yeah. So I think we're at a point where big change is coming, wonderful change. And I think the release, if I can say it the release from the debt slavery that has been the norm is unfolding. I do see people trying to hang on to that. It's like, no, let go. It'll be okay. We end up taking care of one another and we do a wonderful job. So let go. It'll be all right. So,
this woman has the template to follow, in my opinion, coming from a big family that is a functional family and work together, seemingly, So Penny, where can people come find you, and get fishing rods from you?
I like that. I have a website, pennykelly.com. Very simple. It's just got my books and my classes on it. I also have a school. The classes are sold on my website, but my school is mycocolife.com, and it's a place for people of like minds who've taken my classes can come and, like you do in a school. You go to school, you take the class. In between classes, you're in the hallway, you're at your locker, you're chatting with your friends. That's what the school is about. It's a place where people who have taken the classes, because I teach intuition, they are able to talk with one another about the course or about any other question they have. And so it's really, without really doing any kind of, what do they call that, big launch? I think we have pretty close to, we just started it at the end of January. And I think we have like 2,000 people already. Just people keep joining. I'm like, okay. And then I'm on Quartet at the at the Arlington Institute.
I highly recommend the quartet shot. The
I
quartet
do too.
quartetness shot. I coined that one. The world needs a quartetness.
Yeah,
At
I
least once a
agree.
month.
Yep.
Like, I'm not kidding. These 4 heads of
Yeah, that's John Peterson, myself, Greg Braden, and Frank Jacobs. We get together and we talk about some pretty pithy stuff. So,
probably why I like it, because I'm the queen of pith. Pith.
yeah, very good. So those are the main places. And, my books are on Amazon. So,
And your monthly YouTube, the June YouTube that I just watched,
oh, yeah, I do a monthly YouTube.
Mhm.
It's called a Look See. I'm always looking like, okay, what do I see coming? And then I do a monthly tarot reading for the world. So I ask big questions and then pull cards. And then it's like, oh, uh-oh.
Right.
Or, oh, look.
You also have that thing, that show with that nice blonde lady who frightened me, and I'll never eating peanut butter again. That's all.
Yeah,
oh
that's
my God.
shaping reality. That's Kimberly.
Kimberly and peanut butter do not get along. I'm just telling you. And I ever since I saw that show, I'm done.
Okay. Yeah,
I'm
I
scared.
know.
I'm gonna go, I don't know, I'm gonna grow my own peanuts and smash them like Lucy and Ethel in the wine thing. Peanut butter.
Okay. All right. That's actually so much better than what happens to that poor peanut butter in the process of making. Wow.
Yeah, let's
So,
not.
yeah, come join me. Come see what I've got.
Yeah.
And then, there's your channel. There's lots of good people that are putting good stuff out there. So, yeah.
So thanks for listening, you guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All
right.
Appreciate you, Penny.
Thank you
so much for hanging out with me today.
Yeah. Thank you for inviting me. I appreciate you.
Thank you. All
Okay.
right, tell the boys I said hi, please.
I will.
All
I
right.
will.
Take
Okay.
care, guys. That was fun. I tried not to interrupt. I did end up talking about myself and my mom a little bit. Okay, a lot. But I very much enjoyed Penny's vibe. And with any luck, I will actually make it to Michigan one day to visit friends. And maybe, if I'm lucky, I get to meet Penny in person. It's either that or I have to go to the Arlington Institute. Also an option. I have a car. I can drive. I don't have to fly. All right, you guys. Give yourselves permission to open your minds. Keep riding the frequency. And remember, you're the awareness.
I'll be the one to hold your hand and understand when you need sympathy. I'll bring you dreams to dream, and they will seem beyond compare. And when you arise and open your eyes, I'll be there. If I'm
Are you ready? Are you ready? Are you ready?
Frequency, frequency, frequency.
to ride the frequency?